Do you find romantic relationships confusing and hard to understand? Do they never seem to work out no matter how hard you try? And do you ever wonder what it is about you that keeps attracting the same type of partners but only in a different package? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you the answers to these questions and more based on my 45-year journey of taking a deep dive into romantic relationships. And I'm also going to share some strategies on things that you can do to improve your relationships. We'll be talking about what's really going on beneath the surface of romantic relationships that most people will frankly be shocked to realize if they accept it as the truth. So stay tuned. Hi, my name is Michael Doyle and welcome to the channel. Before I dive into the material, I just want to let you know that I am not a licensed psychologist or therapist. I don't have any academic credentials to back up anything that I'm going to say. Everything that I'm going to share with you is based on real-world experience and studies that I have made, and I'll be quoting from a couple of different teachings that have been extremely beneficial to me on my journey and on improving romantic relationships. To set the context, the reason I took this deep dive into relationship material was because I was married and divorced twice by the time I was 30 years old. It was partway through my second marriage that I realized that wasn't going very well at all either, and that I was likely going to end up divorced. And so I started to take a deep dive into all kinds of material on relationships, communication, and even attended with my wife at the time a marriage encounter weekend where we learned a lot about communication skills. You might ask yourself, well, what did he do or what was going on that caused him to divorce twice before he was 30 years old? I wasn't an alcoholic like some of the other male members of my family. I had seen too much of it, and so I became an extremely rare drinker. I don't say I don't drink, but if I have a drink every 3 to 5 years because of a celebration, that would be it. And I never raised my hand to a woman. And in fact, having a deeply loving relationship, long-term relationship, was very high on my list of desires. And I was the one who broke up these relationships. It wasn't the women themselves. So I knew I was in trouble and I needed some help, and I didn't understand my own behaviors and what was going on in these relationships. Now, ultimately, what I come to find out is that there was something much deeper going on than what I realized. And in search of these answers, I got some along the way, but they were never fully complete. And it was only in recent years that I finally found out what was going on. And it was that I was diagnosed with CPTSD, or in other words, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And all of my reactions and all of the ways that I was relating to the women in those relationships were coming from a deeply traumatized, wounded child. And that's why I didn't understand it, my behaviors, and why I couldn't remain in a relationship where there was chaos or where there was any kind of heated arguments over an extended period of time. I just had to get out. The complex part of PTSD makes it distinct from how we commonly refer to post-traumatic stress disorder, which is soldiers or somebody who has experienced a one-time traumatic event. Complex refers to an infant or baby less than 3 years old who's continuously exposed to either physical abuse or physical and emotional neglect or emotional abandonment, where they don't feel safe, they don't feel like their needs are being met, And they're traumatized because they have no control. They're totally powerless, and they depend on the people outside of them. And that has a tremendous impact on a person's life, as I can attest to for sure. Many people who would even be suffering for that wouldn't be even aware of it, because in my early days of searching this material out, I never came across anything called CPTSD. I've done extensive work over the years. I've done a lot of inner child work. I've done a lot of shadow work to uncover these deep wounds and work with them and heal them. They'll never be completely healed, but certainly I'm significantly better, and in a lot of ways I'm very thankful I had them, because doing the work that I've done has made me the person that I am today, and for that I'm extremely grateful. So let's just say it's a positive end to the story. It's not over yet, but to this point at least. What I'm going to be doing then is sharing insights from two specific teachings that have been very beneficial to me, and then I'll point you to some resources that you can check out that will help you to dive into this material even deeper. What I found with these two teachings, and others share this, is that there are some common themes. I'll start with those, and then I'll address the specific teachings. If any of you feel any resistance to what I'm about to say, just know that that's perfectly natural. The ego, who has long been in charge of the way that you do things and all the protection mechanisms that it has developed, doesn't want to lose any of its power and control. It likes things just the way that they are. So if it starts to think or realize that, wait a minute, you're waking up to what's going on and you're about to make some drastic changes in the way you approach things, it's not going to like it. And that'll show up as resistance to the material that you're hearing. The common thread is this: we do not, as adults, fully appreciate and comprehend the extent to which our wounded inner children make all of our decisions. All of our decisions. We think we're rationally thinking them through or feeling them out, and there's a certain component to that, and depending on how important the issue is, then you'll see a greater degree of unconscious decision-making going on. And it's only after you do enough work and you get to understand your inner child's strategies for getting your needs met that you begin to see the relationship very clearly and how you made decisions and choices out of those wounds. Those wounds are totally related to how the inner child did or did not have their needs met. And the strategies that the inner child develops in order to get those needs met fall into several different categories or definitions, and I'll be talking about that. But generally speaking, the way that an inner child becomes wounded is because their needs aren't being met. And if we take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can see what the most basic needs are that a child is trying to get met on up the scale. And to the extent that we have loving, supportive, present parents, we will move up the scale and we will eventually learn to meet our own needs and not look outside of ourselves to get those needs met. However, to the extent that getting our needs met is thwarted, then we can develop these various strategies that may serve us in childhood, whether it be crying or throwing tantrums or whatever the case may be, acting out in whatever ways. But when we try and use those in adult, they backfire on us and are the cause of a lot of the difficulties that we experience in relationships. The first teaching that I'm going to talk about comes from A Course in Miracles. For those of you who don't know, A Course in Miracles is channeled material. The author is Jesus, and the scribe was Helen Schuckman, and it was dictated over several years during the 1970s. It's become very well known throughout the world. But what most people don't know is how much time the Course spends on romantic relationships. It breaks relationships down into 3 types. There's the special love relationship, there's the special hate relationship, and there's the holy relationship. And after I share both teachings, you'll see how they correlate together and how they support each other. In the special love relationship, first of all, special doesn't mean really, really great, and like if you had a special gift or something like that. What special means from the Course's point of view is you identify somebody that you think is special and you take them out of the collective of everyone else that exists, and you lock them down and you make them special. Now, within that type of relationship, they're always transactional. So here is how the special love relationship is transactional. Generally speaking, to the extent that we haven't had our needs met in early childhood, we are looking outside of ourselves to get our needs met. And to the extent that we're doing that, we have a fairly low self-esteem. Doesn't matter how we prop it up and make it look good and how much confidence we seem to exude. On the inside, deep down, this inner child is scared and doesn't feel very good and doesn't feel very loved. And it's looking outside for somebody to meet those needs. I'm looking, what do people say in the dating and reality shows, right? I'm looking for love. What they mean is I'm looking for somebody outside of me who will meet my imagined needs. And so both parties come into a relationship and they're sparked to and attracted to each other even more because there's chemistry, and I'll explain what chemistry is all about in a minute. And underneath what's going on is, I, for example, might say, I don't feel very good about myself, but this person seems to like what I've got going on and what I could possibly give them. So great, because they seem to have what I want. Let's get together. Let's form a relationship, and I'm going to help meet your needs, and you are going to help meet my needs. And everything's going to be wonderful, and we're in the honeymoon phase, and we can't bend backwards far enough in order to meet the other person's needs. Now, the special love relationship turns into the special hate relationship. Why? Well, because for the most part, most of us can't live up to the expectations of the other person and to be the source of fulfilling, to be their need fulfillment machine. So one person all of a sudden doesn't meet the other person's needs. Could be one time, could be several times, and the other person, their inner child is going, well, they're not meeting my needs, then why should I meet their needs? And so both of them over a period of time, could be quick, take some time, eventually they stop meeting each other's needs. And to the extent that those needs are very strong and dominant, that's when you can really get into power struggles and battles, and you're not doing this for me and I'm not doing that for you, and you used to do this and you used to do that, and nobody's doing anything anymore, and it devolves into separation and divorce. Neither party being aware that that's what's really going on. They're looking to have somebody else meet their imagined needs. Here's something that I felt a lot of resistance towards until I learned that it was true over time, and that is what chemistry is really all about. You see all these dating shows, people talking about, well, I don't really have any chemistry with him, or, oh, geez, we have a really strong connection. Well, first of all, let me ask you this. How have things turned out in the times where you did have very strong connection with someone at the beginning and took that as a sign that this must be this must mean this is going to be a great relationship, and that chemistry is going to last forever in the relationship, only to have it not work out. But because our brain is messed with a bit when those chemistry endorphins kick in, we don't think those things through, right? We just want to act on that chemistry, and we think, oh, this is the one. I'm speaking for myself as much as anybody else, I assure you. But what Jesus is saying in A Course in Miracles is, don't think chemistry is what it is. Don't take it as a sign that this is the right relationship for you. What's really going on is the small little child in you that did not get its needs met, all of a sudden, through projection, sees a person and projects onto them this person, and it could be an instantaneous decision. This person looks like they could meet all of my needs. Oh my God, this is so exciting. And that's where chemistry is born. And when both people have it, oh my God, we're going to meet each other's needs. That's the babies inside unconsciously talking. And that's chemistry. Now, shifting then, what is a special, or not a special, but what is a holy relationship? I was not, for many decades actually, of being a Course in Miracles student, I was not a big fan of the description of the holy relationship. Because, well, first of all, it doesn't mean like spiritual. It can be, but it doesn't mean like, oh, What it means is, in a holy relationship, both parties know how to meet their own needs. They're not looking for a need fulfillment machine when they get together with someone else. They've learned how to do that themselves. They've learned how to become emotionally mature people. And why would we get together then? Well, what happens is, instead of chemistry being the basis or physical appearance being the basis of a holy relationship, there's a soul resonance that comes through. And it can be a soulmate or a twin flame type of an attraction, but it's unmistakable. Again, it's not based on you meeting my needs and me meeting your needs. It's based on a soul resonance where we have an appreciation for each other, we see each other for who we are, and our attention turns outside to how can we contribute, how can we create, how can we love, as opposed to let's make $1 million each and let's just make a bunch of babies and create a family. Because once the babies are grown and gone, what's the basis or the mission for the relationship then? Couples that are in a holy relationship have this strong soul bond, and they see themselves being two parts of a greater whole that together can make a contribution to the world that lasts beyond their individual lives. So it could be something like, we want to end world hunger, or we want world peace, or even much smaller than that. But the point is, the focus is outside of themselves on contribution and giving, as opposed to taking and receiving from each other and draining each other. So that's a brief description of these relationships from A Course in Miracles. Now, when my last relationship ended 9 years ago, I was a course student for a couple of decades already, but I found online a couple who went through paragraph by paragraph through the 3 chapters in A Course in Miracles that talks about these relationships. And what they would do is, one would read the paragraph, and then they would both comment on what they heard that paragraph say, and each one would take turns. And one was a psychologist, and the other one was a course student, and they had been friends for 25 years, and both course students for a very long time. There are 20 videos, an hour each, and I ended up watching those over a period of years about 4 times, all 20 of them. And I learned a significant amount. So I'm going to put a link in the description below to those videos if you want to check them out. I highly recommend that you do. And forget that they come from A Course in Miracles. Just listen to the wisdom of Jesus. It's Jesus speaking through this. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Moving on to the next teaching, I can't tell you what a blessing it was to come across attachment theory. I've done a video on it, and I'll put a link in the description above, or a link above, where you can check out the video that I did on it. But I'm going to cover it briefly. I was so profoundly affected by what I learned about myself in attachment theory that I thought this has got to be taught in schools. I mean, when I watch these reality dating shows and coming together shows, and I see the pain and the struggle that these people are going through to try and meet up with someone and to actually interact and have a relationship and spend time together, and how often they end up breaking up and divorcing or not getting together, and I look at them, I have two thoughts. I go, wow, that's me. I recognize the younger me when I watch them. And the other is, oh, if you only knew just a little bit of what I know and what I have experienced that works, it could make such a difference, because they're only going to go and repeat the same patterns with another partner. So whatever time that they could take in order to learn some of these strategies and skills and this information would save so much heartache for people in relationships and their families and children, if they eventually have children and come to the same conclusions. Attachment theory was developed by a psychologist in the 70s, I believe it is, John Bowlby. You can look that up. When it was first developed, it was only taking a look at these patterns in children. However, since then, a lot of psychologists have grabbed onto this material and have evolved it to where there's a tremendous amount of information available for adults now to see and identify their patterns. And there are 4 attachment types. 3 of them are what are called insecure attachment types, and 1 of them is called a secure attachment type. So the 4 attachment styles are fearful avoidant attachment style, anxious preoccupied attachment style, dismissive avoidant attachment style, and then secure attachment style. Now, obviously, the model that we would all like to aspire to is to become a securely attached. But the truth is, the vast majority of people are not coming from secure attachment. One can grow into secure attachment. However, most are stuck in one of the 3 insecure attachment styles. I myself discovered that I was acting out of an anxious, preoccupied attachment style. And once I saw that for what it was and saw how that played out in all of my relationships and how that particular attachment style tends to attract dismissive avoidant attachment style people like my mother was, it made all the difference in the world to me. I will never attract, or at least get involved. I might attract them, but I won't get involved with somebody, because now I know the signs. I know what to look for, and I'm not coming from that place anymore. As soon as I see any anxious, preoccupied behavior, I know how to grab onto it and go, whoa, we're not going there. We're not doing this anymore. Again, the reason these attachment styles have developed is because of the ways in which our caregivers did not meet our needs. And depending on how they were in terms of their emotional maturity, in terms of their wounding, they will behave a particular way. And a baby will develop a particular strategy to get their needs met. They must get their needs met. That's all they have to do, right? I mean, there's nothing else for them to do. I need to eat, sleep, poop, be clean, be loved, be held, be nurtured, and learn and grow. Depending on what their parents' or caregivers' attachment style was, or the way their parenting style was, the baby will develop a strategy to get their needs met that works. or seems to work, or at least seems to work more than another strategy. And so they may try out different strategies until they find one that works better than another. And because that's hardwired into an infant before 3 years old, that stays with them for the rest of their life until they're conscious of it and understand it for what it is, and then they can make a choice from their adult to behave differently in the future and to choose different partners. But it does take work. But a lot of that work is done for you if you study attachment theory. Those are the two teachings in particular that have been extremely beneficial to me. As I say, I'll put links above and in the description box below. But I want to talk about two skills that I learned along the way as well that have been extremely beneficial. And if you didn't go into attachment theory and didn't go into A Course in Miracles material, if you at least researched and checked these out, they would make a substantial difference in your relationships. And the first one is communication skills. As I mentioned, partway through my second marriage, around 26, 27 years old, we did a marriage encounter weekend, which is all about how to communicate. And it's all about couples who have learned how to do this, and they teach you how to do it, and then you practice it and whatnot. Well, you would think that that kind of weekend would be like a huge relief, and that I would be so happy to be learning what I was learning that I'd come away from the weekend feel like a totally changed man. Now, I did come away from that weekend feeling like a totally changed man, but in the sense that, to me, the writing was now on the wall that this second wife and I were not going to be able to save this marriage, because she resisted the weekend completely. She did not want to talk about her feelings. She did not want to communicate. She did not want to cooperate with what was being asked of the students to do. I didn't understand it then, but now I do, because her attachment style was dismissive avoidant. And dismissive avoidant people absolutely do not want to have anything to do with discussing their feelings with someone else or hearing about someone else's feelings. That was a major eye-opener for sure. But I continued to learn about communication and even ended up teaching a little bit about it and having a little bit of a coaching practice, teaching people how to communicate properly. As I say, when I watch these dating shows, I mean, just the breakdowns, and so easily on the most minute things that with just a little bit of skill and a little bit of practice, those things could be avoided. Little things that turn into huge mountains and end up breaking people up, that if they just learned how to take the time to really understand what the other person is saying before they feel the need to be understood, hear them out, make sure that the other person feels heard by reflecting back to them, and then they doing the same thing. Like, to have issues resolved right then and there, no carry forward, not having it thrown back in your face down the road. Whew, what a major blessing to relationships. One of the books that really helped me was a book by two psychologists by the name of Drs. Jordan and Margaret Paul. And the book is called Do I Have to Give Up Me in Order to Be Loved by You? Great title, isn't it? The second thing that I want to talk about is emotional maturity. I know for me, entering into adulthood, I was completely shut down emotionally. I mean completely. In my mid-20s, I was psychologically addicted to cannabis for about 8 years, and I needed the help of a psychiatrist to help me to get over it. And what I was doing was I was self-medicating my feelings and emotions that were so buried deep that I had no access to them and couldn't understand what they were. And when I was 32, I was in a management position, on a fast track to success, And one day I crashed. I totally burnt out and crashed because I had started a course that started to teach me about feelings and emotions. And when I had only recently started it, but because I opened the door, they all wanted to come out all at once, and that just took me on a much deeper healing journey. But emotional maturity, there are books by Daniel Goldman, for example, that will help you become emotionally mature. But the thing that helped me more than anything else is journaling. And I have a video on this channel. I'll put a link to it in the description below where you can watch it, where I talk all about journaling, where you may not think you have anything to write about, and then once you start, it just pours out of you and it keeps coming. And then the more you're able to, like I used to have to literally refer to a list of feelings and emotions to see, am I feeling this? Oh, no. Am I feeling, like I literally had to pick and choose to be able to identify. And then if I identified something, then I'd talk about it in my journal. And that's how I became emotionally mature. And I can tell you now, I'm a very emotionally mature man. But can't speak highly enough for journaling. The reason I did this video is because I see so many couples, especially through these reality shows, that are suffering. And I recognize it because I was there. And I can tell you that if you pay attention to any of these strategies and do a little bit of work, put a little bit of an effort in, the amount of pain and suffering that it's going to save you is going to be way beyond what you can imagine. For me, looking back, I can certainly tell you that. So thank you for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.